Ali over here is our Chief Technology Officer. We are here to present a use case of government funds reconciliation and settlement that we've delivered for the government of Dubai. This is not a POC, this is not a pilot, this is an exact production-grade implementation that we've done. So I will walk you through the dynamics of the project. Actually, what is it that we've done? What problem have we solved for the government of Dubai? And then Ali will come in and he will share with you a few implementation experiences that we've had. That when we implemented a project of this magnitude at a citywide scale, what were the implementation challenges that we faced? And then we'll slightly go under the hood of our technology and everything. So these are broadly the two areas. Now, before I go into the presentation or the use case itself, let me give you a backdrop of what is actually happening in Dubai. So this is a statement that came out last year in 2017 from the Crown Prince of Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Hamadan, where he said Dubai is going to be the first government in the world to move all applicable transactions on blockchain. Now, people don't necessarily understand what this means. What will a city on blockchain even mean, right? So I will first try to explain to you what's happening in that city and then come to this particular use case. So what's happening in that city is that there's another mandate. The mandate is that 12th December 2021, which is the National Day of UAE as well, is the last day when Dubai government will either receive or issue the last piece of paper. So that's like a royal decree. They have to achieve this. Now, when you have this kind of an objective, and there are economic reasons for doing that, you know, they've worked at everything backwards and they understand how much saving the economy will have by going completely paperless. So what they're doing is that they are transforming journeys that I go through in that city as a resident. So as a resident, I might go and I might visit a hospital, I might get my visa renewed, my car registration renewal, I might buy property, lease property, set up a business. And when I'm doing these, when I'm going through these journeys, I typically interact with multiple government entities. 4, 5, 6 government entities in the entire journey. And all these government entities today rely on paper. So there's a lot of paper that moves between one government entity to another for me as a resident to fulfill or complete a journey. So what's being done is that each journey is being picked up, transformed completely, and then ported onto blockchain. So this is what Dubai is trying to achieve, moving a city on blockchain. Now, for them to be able to do that, there are certain building blocks that are required. So for example, the first building block that you need is a digital ID. If me as a resident, I'm having to go and sign pieces of paper everywhere, this is a non-starter, right? The whole story. So for example, digital ID is one of the building blocks, and we've launched a digital ID at a federal level in UAE called the UAE Pass, which was launched in October this year. And then they have building blocks such as a briefcase or a vault. Now, a briefcase or a vault will have all my details, my IDs, my driving license, my visa status digitally stored in the vault, so that this information can be consumed in all of these journeys. So this is basically what's happening. Now, you'd say, I mean, why is blockchain being used here? You know, they could have done this through BPM tools or you know, different ERPs, shaking hands on APIs. Now, these are journeys in which a decision taken by one government entity is sent to another government entity, and this receiving government entity has to take some very mission-critical decisions. So, for example, one of the journeys that we are also involved in is property leasing. Now, once I lease an apartment or a villa in Dubai, there's a tenancy contract that gets signed. It is sent to the land department for verification. Today, what happens is that I have to take this tenancy contract along with all my ID documents to the electric and water authority, because I need to tell them that I've leased this unit. Can you switch the electricity connection on? Now, the project that we are involved in, this particular information will be written through a smart contract on the chain by the land department that, hey, this is a valid tenancy contract. Mr. Dubai Electric and Water Authority, why don't you switch the electricity on? Now, this is a very critical decision that Electric and Water Authority have to take. That is why blockchain provides a very secure platform and vehicle and this glue between different government entities in a trust environment. So that is why there's so much focus on blockchain in Dubai to achieve that paperless initiative and to move all applicable transactions on blockchain. I'll move to the use case now, the use case that we are supposed to present today. This is the reconciliation and settlement of government funds on blockchain. This project was awarded to us in August 2017. So in September, we formally kicked this project off. This is me, by the way. I had really short hair back then. And you see His Highness the Crown Prince of Dubai, who's actually spearheading the blockchain adoption in Dubai, and the Director General of Smart Dubai Government. So first blockchain project awarded at a citywide scale to a company. So I mean, if you Google this project, you'll find a lot of media coverage on this. This is when the project was actually launched. So what is it that we've done in this project? So in Dubai, we've got a payment gateway called Dubai Pay. All right. So this is government's payment gateway. And it is connected with almost 40 government entities. So as a resident of the city, when I have to pay my traffic fines, I have to top up my road toll, I have to pay my electricity bills, any kind of bills that I need to pay for different government entities, this is the payment gateway that processes these transactions, like any other payment gateway in the world. So it is connected to the banks. It would, when I go to the mobile app or the website of these government entities, this page would be rendered, and I will be able to pay my bill, and they'll settle the bill. Now, the payment leg of this payment gateway looks like this. So for example, let's say I'm topping up my road toll, right? So I will go onto the mobile app or the website of RTA, which is the Roads and Transport Authority, and I will, for example, top up 200 dirhams or 500 dirhams of my bill. Dubai Pay will act as the payment gateway, which means I'll be routed to Dubai Pay's page where I'll enter my debit card or the credit card number, and the transaction will go to my bank, in this case, say Emirates NBD, which is the biggest bank in Dubai. The bank will obviously make sure in their core banking system whether I have funds in my account, they'll debit my account, send the authorization back to the payment gateway, and the payment gateway will tell the Roads and Transport Authority that the bill is paid. So like any other typical payment process, this is a payment process that gets done. Now, as consumers or as residents, we're very happy with this payment gateway. I've never had a problem with this payment gateway. The problem is at the back end. And the problem lies with the Department of Finance. So Department of Finance is the custodian of cities' revenue. Now, every month, this department sits in the middle, gets transaction details from all these 40 government entities and these 15 banks, spends up to 45 days ensuring that the books of all these 40 government entities and these 15 banks match, right? Only then can they go back to Roads and Transport Authority and police and everybody that, hey, this is the revenue that we've collected on your behalf. This is the problem that we are solving. We are trying to eliminate this 45 days of delay and Excel files going back and forth between these 40 government entities and 15 banks, and Department of Finance, spending all this time making sure that everybody's books match. So one, we're solving a problem related to efficiency, but B, we're solving another problem. Today, there's no real-time visibility of how much money is in the system. So if the leadership of Dubai today asks the Department of Finance, how much money did the city make today across all these 40 government entities, they will not have an answer because they're trailing behind by 30 to 40 days. So either the leadership will have to go to all these 40 government entities, and through their ERP systems, they'll have to pick up, okay, this is the revenue that police made today. This is the revenue that Roads and Transport Authority made today. So either they'll have to do this, or they'll have to wait for 35 to 40 days when Department of Finance is sure that everybody's books match, and then they'll be able to report these revenues. So this is another problem that we are trying to solve, that there's no visibility, real-time visibility of how much money did the city make today. And these are not small amounts. You can imagine we're talking of billions of dirhams over here. So how have we solved this problem? So typically, imagine I'm paying my traffic fine right now. Okay, so I'm either on the mobile app or I'm on the website of Dubai Police and I'm paying my traffic fine. Today what happens is that this transaction is already stamped on the ERP system of Dubai Police. They have an ERP system, right? And when I enter my bill details, the Dubai Pay page comes and the transactions is marked on the ERP system. What we are telling Dubai Police right now is that, guys, in addition to stamping this transaction in your ERP, which you're doing even today, please go ahead and stamp this transaction asynchronously on the blockchain node that is hosted in your environment, right? So there's a REST API that Dubai Police has through which this transaction, when it is received on their ERP system, is also stamped on the blockchain node that is hosted in their environment. Step one of the transaction. The transaction then comes to Dubai Pay, which is the payment gateway. We tell Dubai Pay the same thing. You even log this transaction in your systems today. In addition to logging this transaction in your system, go ahead and stamp the transaction on the blockchain node hosted in your environment. The third leg of this transaction goes to my bank. And my bank verifies whether I have these funds in my account, and they debit my account in their core banking system. But in addition to doing that, we tell my bank, Emirates NBD, that guys, please go ahead and stamp this transaction on your blockchain node. And the bank sends the authorization back to Dubai Pay, gets stamped on their system as well as on their blockchain node. Transaction goes back to Roads and Transport Authority or Dubai Police. They also stamp the transaction in their ERP as well as on the blockchain. Now, when all the legs of these transactions have been done, you have 3 blockchain nodes: Dubai Police, Dubai Pay, and my bank, on which this transaction is stamped. What happens next? The consensus mechanism kicks in. When the consensus mechanism kicks in, what happens? All these 3 nodes give a big thumbs up onto the network saying, yes, we agree, this transaction has happened. Here's a consumer who paid 1,000 dirhams of traffic fines, and all 3 nodes agree. And when all 3 nodes agree, what have we actually achieved? We've achieved reconciliation. So those 40 to 45 days that were required by the Department of Finance to make sure that everybody's books match, now we've achieved this. Because now, as and when a transaction is taking place, we are in parallel creating a shadow ledger of that transaction on blockchain without disturbing the transaction leg. We don't want to do that. And in doing so, we've achieved real-time reconciliation. So you practically eliminate the need for reconciliation. Because reconciliation programs typically have been written during the past 30, 40 years to act as a second eye. Different government and private entities, when they're talking to one another, they don't trust each other's ERPs. So what happens is that everybody then says, okay, send me your end-of-day files. Let me make sure that your records and my records match. This is what reconciliation is, right? In a blockchain environment, that gets done automatically because everybody's working on the shared ledger. And if everybody agrees that, yes, this transaction has happened, you don't need that second eye, right? So this is what happens. The next step is that our smart contracts kick in, and all the transactions that have been reconciled, we create a batch for these transactions. So let's just say during the past 6 hours, I've had 500 traffic fines paid. So I'll make a batch of these 500 transactions for Dubai Police, and I'll present it to Department of Finance. Department of Finance will click a button, and then these funds will actually be moved to Dubai Police's account, right? Similarly, the banks have to be paid their commissions. So similar batches for banks' commissions will be created for reconciled transactions, and these batches will be pushed to the bank's accounts. We did not need this manual intervention. We could have automated this step easily as well, but then you're dealing with Department of Finance of a city. They have a certain mindset. They still work with vouchers. And I don't blame them. These are not small amounts. Like I said, these are billions of dirhams moving between different departments. So they said, no, we need a proper maker-checker policy, and we want to see how many funds are being moved. So settlement wasn't really their problem. Their problem was reconciliation. So this is how we've solved the reconciliation problem. And like I said in the beginning, the other problem was that nobody knew how much money is in the system. Today they know. As and when a transaction happens, it is reconciled, and Department of Finance, with a lot of assurance, can tell the city's leadership that this is the revenue that we've collected today across these 40 government entities. And I mean, when you stitch this kind of a system together, blockchain solves a particular problem, but then you have to have a lot of other modules and supporting features in place as well. I mean, blockchain was like 30% surface area of this project. 60 to 70% of the surface area was having these kind of modules. You have to have proper exception management. You have to have disputes and refunds management and all of these things. There will be situations in which a blockchain node will fail and you will not have a transaction reconciled. How do you handle with those situations? How do you plug in those workflows? So all of this has also been done. This is just a comparison of the current state versus the past state of the solution. And we have, as of, I think, last week, 12 million transactions stamped on the system. So like I said, this is a production grade implementation running in real time. Now I will invite Ali to walk you through a bit of the implementation challenges that we've had while implementing this kind of a solution. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Vikas. Okay, so there was a transaction phase, and we would have multiple versions of Hyperledger available. So we have multiple versions of the Hyperledger available, and we have been trying to do this particular project for more than 1.5 years now. So I'll show the different versions with which we try to achieve certain things and how we are continuously enhancing the experience that is there as part of this particular project. So we started with 0.6, where we started to develop a prototype. But a few transactions could be done, and 0.6 was not stable at all. So it was like you could not move forward. Then 1.0 solved those stability problems. But then when we put it in a kind of a pilot phase for this particular project, and when the transaction load came, it started to get slow. The problem to be solved is real-time reconciliations, right? And if it's not achieving it, the goal is not achieved. So we had to immediately move on the 1.1 release when it came. So now it was much more stable. It was able to handle a much larger TPS. But still, there are certain areas for which the problem remained. So when you are doing this particular transaction or stamping the transactions on the blockchain, it requires a lot of storage as well. Because here we are talking about multiple government entities, so each of them have multiple nodes as well. So for each of the nodes, you have this storage that is required. Now, other than that, the orderers, they would also have their storage because of their logs. The Kafka clusters, they would also have their storage. So the storage size increases quite much, right? And another issue is related to the privacy. How many channels do you create? Because here, you have 3 parties available at any particular time, and try to understand this, that one of the department, which is roads authority, and another department, which is police. They would not both want that my transaction should be visible to the other. At the other end, there are banks involved because they are the one who actually collects the fund. So they will also say my transaction would not be available to anybody else. So now, we cannot create many channels, like one entity, then this Department of Finance, and then that particular bank, then another entity, then Department of Finance and any other bank, right? So we have to come around to some kind of solution. So what we end up doing is that we created one channel between this Department of Finance and this government entity to put all the transaction there, and another channel between the bank and the Department of Finance. And then we wrote a code on top of it, so it was taking it from one channel and putting the transaction when required on the other channel. But this is not a kind of a graceful approach. And then 1.2 and 1.3 release came on, where we have privacy collection. So gradually, these were the different problems encountered, and this is how we are continuously going and evolving the systems so that it could support the kind of scalability that is required. Because as much as like 50 to 60,000 transactions comes per day which are stamped on this particular system. Other than the technical challenges, there were other challenges in terms of doing the implementation. Now, while we started to do, and since there are many entities involved whereby there are multiple nodes available, so setting up the whole infrastructure for Hyperledger, because it is essentially decentralized, would not allow you to test the business level functionality. Right, so we started with this particular thing in mind that, okay, we will install and there would be decentralization, and then test on top of it our smart contracts and all the different areas of the application. But we ended up putting all the nodes together in one environment, asking the business to actually mature, test all the processes across, because there are many other processes, because what happens if there is a refund of this particular transaction, how the impacts would be there. What happens for verifying the actual amounts for the settlements, all these things are critical, right? So they started to have just one area whereby all the nodes were available. They tested the business functionality at the same time. At the background, the infrastructure was set up, and then we moved the nodes across to the actual participants. Now, along with that, there are other challenges that come, because there are many organizations involved, so each of them have their own infrastructure policies. Each of them have their own security policies. And since this discipline is being matured, right, there are not many best practices. Like, for example, if we see that how do we backtrack that, okay, this was a particular transaction, but on the blockchain, how they are going to find out that, okay, this is the proof. With blockchain, people ignore that, okay, it's blockchain, all the transactions are there, but in case of a dispute, how do you do the auditability? That should be easier, right? Because those security guys will want to evaluate that as part of a delivery of the project. So how do you do that? So we learned those particular areas. Smart contract deployment process. Now, if there are many parties involved, and if you go to the command line and deploy the smart contract, whoever is doing that, he is in charge of making all the terms and conditions in favor. So how do you do it in a graceful manner? So there needs to be a workflow or a smart contract for the deployment process as well, where everybody votes, okay, this is a correct contract, and this should be the one that should go. Otherwise, it should not be deployed at all. So those kind of things we had to build it as part of, because it was not provided readily by the Hyperledger. Otherwise, the solution would have this not get the security clearance, because anyway, it's a government system. Then there would be cases whereby how you evaluate that, okay, if a rogue nodes come on, what would be the impacts, right? So all these things, the Hyperledger is continuously in the evolution phase, so there are many things which are coming up, but then when those things were not available, we had to do something about it. So these were some of the challenges we had in terms of security. One other area was that customers generally have not embraced this containerization technologies yet, like Kubernetes or Docker swarms as well. So while deployment of these particular infrastructures, those kind of questions also come in, that are the Docker containers secured? Are they pretty much hardened? What are the things? What is the base operating system? Like most of the organization, they are not quite much comfortable with Ubuntu. They say, okay, it should be based on a Red Hat container. So these are a lot of challenges in terms of, which are not related to the blockchain, but some other challenges which are there as part of the ecosystem. So I'll invite Vikas again. Complete the story?
Yeah, we're just wrapping up now. So, I mean, this is just one of the projects that we've delivered. But after delivering this project, or while we were delivering this project, we've had many more successes in our part of the world where we come from. And these are some of the implementations that we are currently involved in. So, I mean, the two themes that you'll clearly see here is our focus is A, digital government transformation. So we're going after a lot of digital government transformation projects. For example, this project of property, paperless property rental, and others, Dubai Knowledge Blockchain, these are all government-driven projects. And the second theme that we're pursuing is financial regulation and supervision. This is where we're going to the regulators and setting up platforms such as, for example, UAE Trade Connect. Now, this is a platform that was unveiled last week, where we've set up a national level platform for ensuring there are no invoice discounting frauds. There are a lot of invoice discounting frauds that we have in UAE. This is a consortium of banks jointly with the biggest telco of our country in UAE, who's launched this as a service. We're doing a lot of procure-to-pay implementations in the oil and gas sector as well as in the government sector. We're doing tokenization of loyalty points. So these are many projects, and like I said, quite a few of them are actual production-grade implementations. These are not POCs. We are way beyond POCs in our part of the world. Now, after the POCs have been delivered, we're getting actual RFPs, very well thought through RFPs by the customer and their consultants. And then there's a whole procurement and bidding process that is happening. So the pace of adoption is quite fast. And then we're doing a lot of implementations in Saudi Arabia as well. Now, all of these implementations and projects are being delivered through our platform called Cypher. Now, Cypher is a blockchain orchestration and governance layer that enables organizations to embark on a multi-year blockchain journey. We don't go into an organization with one use case. We go into organizations giving them a vision of a multi-year blockchain strategy. And when we embarked on blockchain journey ourselves back in 2016, there are a couple of things that we had realized. The first thing that we had realized was that their organizations will have multiple blockchains hosted in their environment. I'll give you an example. I'll just skip this slide. Now, this is an example of a land department. Now, this land department is probably doing 3 use cases. One is property registration use case, this one over here. Then there's a leasing chain, of which we are also part. And then there's a mortgage chain. Now, this is where banks have set up a mortgage chain to process paperless mortgages. Now, the first 2 projects are being championed by the land department or the Ministry of Land themselves. So they might be able to call shots here and say, let's just do this on Hyperledger. And as an organization, let's embrace Hyperledger. But the mortgage chain is being led by the banks. And in this chain, the land department is a mere participant. And this project is probably being done on Quorum or Corda. Now, if this land department is hosting multiple blockchains within their environment, and they're having their ERP systems talk to these blockchains directly, and these are tightly coupled, this is a very, very messy architecture in the long run. So this is where Cypher comes in the middle, where we have ready-made adapters for Hyperledger Fabric, for Corda, for Quorum, and we tell organizations that have your ERPs and existing systems land on this particular platform, Cypher, and from here we've got a couple of dozen microservices that come out of the box, and it helps the overall adoption of blockchain for these entities. So that is why the time to market, when we implement a project, our time to market and implementation is typically 1/4 that of other companies in the market, because we've got so much ready-made components and microservices that helps organization adopt these technologies much faster. So yeah, this is about it from our end. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. No. You must have been very thorough. Thank you.